I gave her everything, my trust, my heart, and a ring. She gave me a lie, a show, and a lesson I'll never forget. I didn't just lose money in Bangkok. I lost the last piece of myself I thought was safe. The ring felt heavier in my pocket than it should have. 3 carats. Not huge, but real. I'd bought it 2 days earlier from a jeweler near Siloam, the kind of place where they speak perfect English and know exactly what Western men are looking for. For someone special? The clerk had asked with that knowing smile. I nodded. Someone special. That's what I thought Ananya was. A few nights ago, as I sat alone with those memories, an email landed in my inbox. It wasn't from Ananya. It wasn't from anyone tied to the past. It was from one of you, a longtime viewer of this channel. He said he'd been quietly listening for months, watching these stories unfold late at night, and felt he couldn't keep his own secret anymore. He wanted me to know that what I shared here mattered because he'd lived through something painfully similar. When I read his words, my chest tightened. At first, I felt that old sting of shame, the kind that makes you want to shut the laptop and never open it again. Then, slowly, I felt something else, a strange kind of relief. To know I wasn't the only one. To know these confessions weren't just cries into the void, but echoes that found someone else's heart. By the time I reached the last line of his message, I was holding back tears. So, before I continue, let me pause here to say this. If our stories resonate with you, please take a second to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe. And tell me, where in the world are you watching from tonight? I read every single comment, and they remind me why I keep opening up like this. To those of you who come back week after week, I can't thank you enough. You're not just an audience, you're part of something that makes these lonely nights feel less empty. Consider this a super thank you, from me to you. Let me take you back to where it all started. The rooftop bar overlooked the Chao Phraya River. The city lights danced on the water like scattered diamonds, and the air smelled of jasmine and exhaust fumes. Bangkok at its most seductive. I'd chosen this place carefully romantic but not too flashy. I wanted this moment to feel real, not like some tourist fantasy. Martin, you seem nervous tonight, she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. Her fingers were delicate, painted a soft pink that caught the candlelight. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect, actually. I pulled the small velvet box from my jacket pocket. Her eyes widened, and for a moment I saw something flash across her face. Surprise? Fear? But then she smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Ananya, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. These past 4 months have been the best of my life. You make me feel like I'm not just some old man wandering around a foreign country. You make me feel chosen. She didn't say anything, just stared at the box in my hands. I know we're different. I know people might not understand. But I love you. I want to build something real with you. I opened the box. The diamond caught the light and threw it back at us in tiny rainbows. Will you marry me? She gasped. Actually gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth and tears started streaming down her cheeks. Martin, I never thought. She looked at the ring, then at me, then back at the ring. I never thought a man would choose me like this. I slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I'd stolen one of her other rings weeks ago to get the size right. She held her hand up to the light, watching the diamond sparkle. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course, yes. She kissed me then, hard and desperate, like she was afraid I might disappear. I tasted salt from her tears, and something else, relief? Triumph? I didn't know. I was too caught up in my own relief, my own triumph. I'd done it. At 64, after burying my wife 3 years ago, after moving halfway around the world to escape the emptiness of my old life, I'd found love again. I love you, she said against my lips. I love you so much, Martin. I love you too. And I meant it. God help me, I meant every word. We stayed on that rooftop until they closed, just holding hands and planning our future. She wanted a small ceremony, just family. I wanted whatever made her happy. She talked about her dreams, opening her own jewelry business, traveling to America to meet my family, maybe having children someday if it wasn't too late. I listened to every word and believed every promise. When we finally left, she couldn't stop looking at her hand. It's so beautiful, Martin. So perfect. She took a selfie with her phone, the ring prominently displayed. Can I post this? My friends won't believe it. Of course, I said. Show the world. That night, as I lay in my condo listening to the traffic below, I felt something I hadn't felt since before my wife got sick. Hope. Real, genuine hope for the future. I was going to spend the rest of my life with this woman. We were going to be happy. I should have known then that happiness, real happiness, doesn't usually announce itself with diamonds and Instagram posts. But I was 64 and in love, and living in a city where anything seemed possible. The ring was real. The moment was real. That's all I thought mattered. I was wrong about everything else. 6 months earlier, I hadn't even known her name. I was just another American expatriate wandering around Bangkok, trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. My wife Ellen had died of cancer 3 years prior, and after selling our house in Minneapolis, after saying goodbye to friends who didn't know how to talk to a widower, I'd bought a one-way ticket to Thailand. The plan was simple: disappear for a while, maybe forever. Bangkok was supposed to be temporary. A place to get lost, not a place to get found. But that's exactly what happened the day I walked into Ananya's gold shop. I needed a gift for my neighbor's birthday, an elderly German woman named Helga, who'd been kind to me during my first month in the city. Nothing fancy, just something to show appreciation. The shop was tucked between a massage parlor and a street food stall on Sukhumvit Road, the kind of place I normally would have walked past without a second glance. "Can I help you?" The voice came from behind the jewelry case. When I looked up, I saw her for the first time. Ananya was 29, though I didn't know that yet. What I knew immediately was that she was beautiful in a way that made me forget my own age. Long black hair that caught the fluorescent lights, skin like polished teak, and eyes that seemed to see right through my awkward tourist exterior to something more interesting underneath. "I need a gift," I managed. "For a friend. A woman. Something. Nice, but not too personal." She smiled and moved around the counter toward me. She was wearing a simple blue dress and gold sandals that clicked softly on the tile floor. "How much you want to spend?" "I don't know." "What's appropriate?" She studied my face for a moment, then nodded toward a display of gold bracelets. "These are beautiful. Traditional Thai design, but not too, how you say, intimate. Good for friend." She lifted a delicate chain from the case. The gold was warm and heavy in the palm of her hand. 22 carat. Very good quality. Your friend will know you respect her." I watched her fingers trace the links of the bracelet. There was something hypnotic about the way she handled the jewelry, like she understood its secrets. "How much?" 15,000 baht. "Good price for you. About $400. More than I'd planned to spend, but something about the way she looked at me made me want to impress her. "I'll take it." As she wrapped the bracelet, we talked. Her English was better than my Thai, which wasn't saying much since I only knew hello, thank you, and where's the bathroom. She'd learned from tourists, she said. "Customers like me." "You live in Bangkok long time?" she asked, securing the gift with a small gold ribbon. "A few months. Still figuring it out. Is difficult at first. Bangkok can be overwhelming for Farang." She used the Thai word for foreigner, but her tone was gentle, not mocking. "Where you from in America?" "Minnesota. Very cold. Very different from here." She laughed, and the sound was like wind chimes. "I never see snow, only in movies. Maybe someday I'll show you." The words slipped out before I could stop them. I felt my face redden. "I mean, if you're ever interested in traveling." She handed me the wrapped bracelet, her fingers brushing mine for just a moment. "Maybe someday," she said softly. "I finish work at 7. If you want to show me pictures of snow, there's coffee shop next door." That's how it started. Coffee turned into dinner, turned into long walks along the river. She showed me her Bangkok, not the tourist version, but the real city. Street vendors who knew her by name, temples where she'd prayed as a child, neighborhoods where Western faces were rare but welcome because I was with her. Within 2 weeks, I was completely under her spell. She had a way of making me feel special without saying so directly. She'd laugh at my attempts to speak Thai. She'd slip her hand into mine while we walked. She'd insist on paying for small things, street food, taxi rides, saying, "I show you my city, I pay." It made me feel less like a tourist and more like, what? A boyfriend? A partner? Someone who mattered to her beyond his foreign passport and credit cards. "You're different from other men who come to Thailand," she told me one night as we sat by the river. "You don't just want, You want to understand. What do other men want? I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. She looked out at the water, her expression suddenly serious. They want fantasy. Young girl who never ask questions, never have problems, never need anything except make them feel young again. She turned to me. But you ask questions. You want to know about my family, my work, my dreams. You see me as person. That's when I knew I was falling in love with her. Not just with her beauty or her attention, but with the idea that she saw something in me worth loving back. I'd been invisible for so long, just another grieving widower counting down the days. But Ananya made me feel alive again. Her cousin Bo was always around, a 25-year-old guy who worked odd jobs and spoke decent English. He seemed friendly enough, always ready with a smile and a joke. Martin, good man, he'd tell Ananya in front of me. You lucky girl. But sometimes I caught him watching me with calculation in his eyes, like he was adding up my worth in baht and dollars. My neighbor Greg, an American expat who'd been in Bangkok for 15 years, had different opinions. She's lovely, Martin, but don't rush into anything. Girls like her, they're used to getting what they need from foreigners. Not saying she's a bad person, just be careful. I didn't want to hear it. Greg was cynical, probably jealous that I'd found someone while he spent his evenings alone in beer bars complaining about Thai women to anyone who'd listen. Ananya was different. She had to be. The way she looked at me, touched me, listened to my stories about Ellen without jealousy or impatience that couldn't be fake. Could it? Martin, we should go to Koh Samet this weekend, Ananya said, scrolling through photos on her phone. We were lying in my bed on a Sunday morning, the air conditioning humming against the Bangkok heat. She'd started staying over 3 nights a week, leaving little traces of herself around my condo, a hair clip on the bathroom counter, jasmine tea in my kitchen, her perfume clinging to my pillows. The beach? I propped myself up on my elbow to look at her phone. The photos showed pristine white sand, crystal blue water, couples in matching swimwear posing for the camera. Yes, is beautiful. Very romantic. She swiped to another image, a sunset over the ocean, filtered to golden perfection. I want to make content there. You know, for my Instagram. Content. She'd started using that word more often lately. Our dates had become increasingly photogenic, scenic restaurants, matching outfits she picked out for us, strategic positioning during conversation so the lighting was just right. I told myself it was harmless. Young people documented everything these days. It didn't mean our relationship was fake just because she wanted to capture it. What kind of content? I asked. You know, couple goals. Lifestyle stuff. She held up her phone and snapped a selfie of us, her head on my chest, both of us squinting in the morning light. My followers love when I post about us. They think we're so cute. I smiled for the camera, but something twisted in my stomach. How many followers do you have now? Almost 8,000. Growing every day. She showed me her profile, carefully curated images of her life in Bangkok. Designer coffee cups, sunset shots, outfit layouts on hotel beds, and increasingly, photos of us together. In every couple photo, she looked radiant. I looked old. Happy but old. That's impressive, I said. You could probably make money from this. Her eyes lit up. Yes, that's what I want to do. Influencer marketing. But I need better equipment. Professional camera, ring light, maybe new phone. She gestured at her iPhone 11. This camera is okay, but for serious content creation. What kind of phone do you need? iPhone 14 Pro Max would be perfect. The camera is amazing for video. She bit her lip, looking almost embarrassed. But is expensive. Maybe someday when I have more sponsors. I knew what she was asking without asking. It was a technique I'd noticed. She'd perfected mentioning something she wanted or needed, then immediately dismissing it as impossible. It made me want to be the hero, the one who could make her dreams come true. How much is the new iPhone? I asked. 45,000 baht. Too much, she said quickly. I save money, maybe next year. 45,000 baht. About $1,200. Ellen and I used to spend that much on dinner and wine without thinking twice. What if I got it for you? As a gift. Martin, no. Is too much money. It's not too much if it helps your career. Besides, I like seeing you happy. She kissed me then, soft and sweet and grateful. You're too good to me. But I can't ask you to spend so much. You're not asking. I'm offering. That afternoon, We went to the Apple store. She practically glowed as she unboxed the new phone, immediately testing the camera, showing me the difference in photo quality. Look how clear this is. And the video stabilization. She filmed a short clip of me sitting in a coffee shop, the image crisp and professional looking. This is going to change everything for my content. Within a week, her Instagram transformed. Professional quality photos appeared daily, her morning coffee routine, outfit changes, artistic shots of Bangkok street life, and me. I was featured more and more, always smiling, always slightly out of place but gamely playing along. My handsome American, she'd caption photos of us. So lucky to have found my person. The comments poured in. Couple goals. He treats you like a queen. Age is just a number. Relationship goals for real. See, she said, showing me the engagement numbers. People love us together. We could be big influencer couple, Martin. Like those YouTube couples who travel and make money from sponsors. I should have been flattered. Instead, I felt like a prop in someone else's performance. But when I looked at Ananya's face, shining with excitement about her growing following, I pushed those feelings down. She was building something. I was helping her dream come true. That's what love was supposed to do, lift each other up. We went to Koh Samet the following weekend. She'd planned every detail, the resort, the restaurants, even the specific beaches where the lighting would be best for photos. I watched her work, directing me into position, adjusting my shirt, telling me when to smile and when to look pensive. She was a professional, and our relationship was her latest project. Hold my hand, but not too tight. Natural, but so people can see your watch. She instructed as we walked along the beach at sunset. Good. Now laugh like I said something funny. I laughed on cue. The camera captured it. Another perfect moment for the feed. That night, as she edited photos on her new phone while I lay beside her, I felt a strange disconnection from my own life. When had I become a character in Ananya's story instead of the author of my own? When had our private moments become content creation opportunities? Martin, she said without looking up from her phone. Tomorrow we should do the matching swimwear shoot I planned. The hotel has perfect pool area for photos. Matching swimwear? I bought them yesterday. Couples set. Very cute. She showed me her phone, 2 navy blue swimsuits laid out on the hotel bed, his and hers versions of the same design. Will look amazing on Instagram. I stared at the photo. When was the last time Ellen and I had worn matching anything? When was the last time I'd cared what I looked like in someone else's photograph? Sounds great, I said, because what else could I say? She was happy. Her followers were happy. I was, part of something bigger than myself, even if I wasn't entirely sure what that something was anymore. 2 weeks after our engagement, something shifted. Ananya's responses to my messages became shorter, delayed. Our nightly phone calls turned into brief check-ins. She canceled dinner twice, claiming work obligations at the gold shop. When I suggested we go ring shopping for my wedding band, she said she was too busy. Family problems, Bo explained when I ran into him at a street food stall near her apartment building. Ananya dealing with difficult situation right now, you understand. What kind of problems? I asked. Maybe I can help. Bo's smile was sympathetic but evasive. Thai family business, very complicated. She doesn't want to burden you with stress. She loves you too much to bring you into drama. That made sense. I didn't want to be the foreign boyfriend who couldn't understand the cultural complexities of her life. Still, the distance hurt. We'd gone from seeing each other almost daily to maybe twice a week. And even then, she seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly, begging off early with excuses about early morning shifts or family obligations. I tried to be understanding. Patient. Love meant giving people space when they needed it, right? Then the money disappeared. I keep my cash in a small safe in my bedroom closet, a habit from my architecture days when I dealt with contractors who preferred cash payments. Usually around 100,000 baht, maybe more. Emergency money, tip money. The kind of cash that makes life in Bangkok easier. I'd given Ananya the combination months earlier when she'd stayed over and needed to grab some baht for a taxi while I was in the shower. In case you ever need anything, I'd told her. It felt like an intimate gesture, sharing access to my private things. A sign of trust. But when I went to pay for groceries and opened the safe, 40,000 baht was gone. Just gone. No note, no explanation. My first thought was that I'd miscounted, that I'd spent more than I remembered. but I kept detailed records in a notebook. Old architect habits die hard. The money had been there 3 days ago. Now it wasn't. I stared at the empty space in the safe for 10 minutes, my mind racing through possibilities. A break-in? No, nothing else was missing, and the safe showed no signs of tampering. A mistake in my counting? No, I'd checked twice. That left only one possibility, and I didn't want to consider it. When Ananya came over that evening, I was sitting on the couch waiting for her. She looked tired, distracted. Her usual bright greeting was replaced with a perfunctory kiss on the cheek. "We need to talk," I said. She froze halfway to the kitchen. "About what?" "Some money is missing from my safe, 40,000 baht." Her face went completely blank. For several seconds she just stared at me. Then tears started forming in her eyes. "Martin, you think I take your money? I'm not accusing you. I'm just confused. You're the only other person who knows the combination. I can't believe you think this about me." Her voice was small, wounded. "After everything we mean to each other, you think I'm thief?" The tears were real, streaming down her cheeks now. She sank into the chair across from me, her whole body shaking. "How can you say this? How can you destroy what we have over money?" I felt like a monster. This was Ananya, the woman who insisted on paying for street food when we ate together. The woman who'd cried when I proposed. The woman who'd never asked me for anything directly, only accepted gifts I'd offered freely. "I'm sorry," I said, moving to sit beside her. "I didn't mean to accuse you. I just didn't know what else to think. Maybe Bo took it," she whispered. "He come here sometimes when you're out, to check on apartment for me. He know about safe because I tell him you trust me with combination. Maybe Bo has been here, only when I worried about you. When you go out for long walks alone, I ask him to make sure apartment is okay. I didn't think, oh God, Martin, what if he take money? What if my own family betray us?" She cried harder. I held her, feeling guilty for doubting her, angry at Bo for potentially taking advantage of our trust, and confused about why anyone had been in my apartment when I wasn't there. "I get money back," she promised. "I confront Bo, make him return what he take. I'm so sorry, Martin. So sorry my family caused problems for us." "It's not your fault," I said, though something still felt wrong. "We'll figure it out." She left early that night, claiming she needed to deal with the Bo situation immediately. I didn't sleep well. The next morning, I double-checked my safe. Nothing else was missing, but something felt off about the whole thing. If Bo had taken the money, why hadn't he taken more? Why exactly 40,000 baht? And why had Ananya never mentioned that she'd given her cousin access to my apartment? 3 days later, she brought me 30,000 baht in cash. "Is all I can get back," she said, looking exhausted. "Bo already spent 10,000, but he promised to pay remaining amount next month when he get job." "What did he say when you confronted him?" "He deny at first, then admit when I threatened to call police. He say he desperate, need money for girlfriend's medical bill. Is not excuse but..." She shrugged helplessly. "Family is complicated, Martin. Sometimes people you trust most are ones who hurt you." I took the money, but the math bothered me. 30,000 returned immediately. 10,000 allegedly spent. Where had Bo gotten 30,000 baht on short notice? And why did Ananya look so tired, so stressed, if this was just about her cousin's theft? "Are you okay?" I asked. "You seem different lately." "I'm fine. Just dealing with family drama, work pressure. Everything will be normal again soon." She kissed me, but it felt perfunctory. "I need to go. Early shift tomorrow." After she left, I sat in my apartment trying to piece together what had happened. The money was mostly back, but something fundamental had shifted. The easy trust between us felt strained. I'd accused her of theft. She'd revealed that her cousin had access to my home without my knowledge. Neither of us was acting quite like ourselves anymore. I told myself it was just a rough patch. All couples had them. The important thing was that we'd worked through it together, like partners should. But late that night, checking my Instagram out of habit, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Ananya had posted a story 12 hours earlier, a short video of herself getting a manicure at an expensive spa, her engagement ring clearly visible as she held up her freshly painted nails. The timestamp showed she'd posted it around the same time she claimed to be confronting Bo about the theft. I watched the video 3 times. Her nails were perfect, professionally done. She looked relaxed, happy, not like someone dealing with family betrayal and stolen money. Not like someone telling the truth. "Martin, you need to see this." Greg's voice was tight when he called me at 8 in the morning. "Can you come over? Now?" I'd been awake for hours anyway, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations with Ananya, trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't. She hadn't answered my texts from the night before. Nothing unusual, she'd been inconsistent with communication for weeks, but something about Greg's tone made my stomach clench. "What's wrong? Just come over. Don't look at Instagram until you get here." 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Greg's living room while he paced by the window. His laptop was open on the coffee table, Instagram pulled up on the screen. "I wasn't stalking her," he said quickly. "I follow her account because you talk about her all the time and she posts good photos of Bangkok. But last night..." He turned the laptop toward me. "She tagged a location at some nightclub in Thonglor. High-end place, expensive drinks." The photo loaded slowly. When it came into focus, I stopped breathing. Ananya was pressed against a young Thai man, maybe 25, muscular, with the kind of carefully maintained appearance that suggested money and time spent in gyms. Her head was on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. They were both smiling at the camera, the kind of intimate, comfortable smile that comes from familiarity. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was her left hand, clearly visible in the photo, the diamond engagement ring I'd given her catching the club's strobe lights like a beacon. "The post is from 11 p.m. last night," Greg said gently. "Tagged location is Club Insanity. Pretty exclusive place." I stared at the screen. Last night, when I'd texted her asking if she wanted to have dinner, she'd responded, "So tired from work. Going to sleep early. Talk tomorrow." The timestamp on that message was 8:30 p.m. Who is he? Tagged as Niran, BKK, his profile is public. Looks like he's some kind of cryptocurrency trader. Lots of photos with expensive cars, designer clothes, nightclub scenes. Greg sat down beside me. "Martin, I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you want to see." I clicked on the man's profile. The most recent photo showed him and Ananya at what looked like an expensive restaurant. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen, looking radiant and happy, my ring on her finger. The caption was in Thai, but the heart emojis were universal. "How long?" My voice cracked. "How long has this been going on? I don't know." But looking at his feed, there are photos going back at least 2 weeks. Maybe longer. 2 weeks. Right around the time she'd started being distant, canceling our dates, claiming family problems. I scrolled through Niran's Instagram with numb fingers. There was Ananya at a rooftop bar I couldn't afford. Ananya shopping at luxury malls. Ananya in what looked like a private room at an expensive karaoke place, surrounded by friends I'd never met. In every photo, she was wearing my ring. "Maybe it's not what it looks like," I said weakly. "Maybe he's just a friend." Greg's expression was pity mixed with frustration. "Martin, look at the way she's touching him. Look at the intimacy. These aren't friendship photos." I knew he was right, but admitting it would mean admitting that everything I thought I knew about my life was a lie. The woman I'd proposed to, the woman who'd cried and said no man had ever chosen her like I had, was wearing my ring while posing with another man. Not hiding it, not ashamed of it, but displaying it proudly like it meant nothing more than any other piece of jewelry. "I need to talk to her," I said. "Martin, I need to hear it from her. Maybe there's an explanation." But even as I said it, I was remembering all the small inconsistencies from recent weeks. The distance. The canceled dates. The family problems that Bo mentioned but never explained in detail. The missing money. The professional manicure she'd gotten while supposedly confronting her thieving cousin. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I tried texting. No response. I even went to the gold shop where she worked, but her coworker said she'd called in sick. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a bottle of whiskey and Greg's laptop, scrolling through both their Instagram accounts like a detective gathering evidence for a case I didn't want to solve. The more I looked, the clearer the picture became. This wasn't a recent development. The timeline suggested she'd been seeing Niran for at least a month, maybe longer. All those family emergencies, work obligations, early morning shifts she'd been with him. And she'd been wearing my ring the entire time. Around midnight, drunk on whiskey and self-pity, I found myself typing a comment on one of Niran's photos. Nice ring. I picked it out myself. I deleted it before posting. What was the point? Everyone who mattered already knew the truth except me. My phone buzzed. A text from Bo. Hey Martin. Ananya says you being difficult about private life. Maybe better you give space for a while. I stared at the message. Even her cousin was managing my expectations now. I was being managed by a 29-year-old gold shop clerk and her extended family, treated like a problem to be solved rather than a person who deserved basic honesty. I poured another whiskey and tried to figure out when I'd become so pathetic. When had I stopped being Martin Halvorsen, a man who'd built buildings and navigated complex construction projects and survived his wife's death with dignity, and turned into this desperate old fool begging for scraps of attention from a woman who was probably laughing about me with her real boyfriend? The answer was simple. The moment I'd convinced myself that someone like Ananya could actually love someone like me. I waited outside the gold shop for 3 hours. Not inside. I couldn't handle the pitying looks from her coworkers. Just across the street at a coffee stand, watching the entrance, drinking terrible instant coffee and rehearsing what I was going to say. She finally appeared around 11 a.m., 30 minutes after her shift was supposed to start. She looked different. Her hair was styled differently, more expensive looking, new earrings, designer handbag I'd never seen before. She was scrolling through her phone as she walked, completely absorbed in whatever was on the screen. Ananya. She looked up, startled. For just a moment, her face showed something that might have been guilt. Then it went blank, expressionless in a way I'd never seen before. Martin, what are you doing here? We need to talk. I'm late for work. This is more important than work. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. I saw the photos, Ananya, from the nightclub, with Niran. She didn't flinch, didn't deny it, didn't even look surprised that I knew. She just stared at me with those beautiful dark eyes that had once made me feel like the most important person in the world, and now made me feel like a stranger. So? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So you're wearing my engagement ring while you're with another man. So you've been lying to me for weeks. So everything between us is apparently fake. She sighed, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Martin, you gave too much. I never asked for ring. I never asked for money. I never asked for phone. You gave because you want to give. Not my fault you gave too much. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. Not my fault you gave too much. Like my love was something excessive and embarrassing, something that had made me pathetic rather than generous. You said yes when I proposed. You cried. You said no man had ever chosen you like that. Yes, I said yes. Was beautiful moment. But I never promised to be only with you forever. That's what engagement means, Ananya. That's what the ring means. She looked down at her left hand, at the diamond I'd chosen so carefully, and shrugged. His beautiful ring. I like to wear it. While you're with your boyfriend? Niran is. Different situation. He understand about my work, about foreign customers. He not jealous of business relationships. Business relationships. That's what I was. A customer who'd gotten too emotionally invested in the transaction. Take it off, I said quietly. What? Take off the ring. If it doesn't mean anything to you, if I'm just a business relationship, take it off. She looked genuinely surprised by the request. Why? Is gift. You give me gift, is mine now. I gave it to you as a symbol of our engagement. If there's no engagement, you want ring back? She laughed, actually laughed. Martin, you so strange. Why you care about ring if you don't care about me anymore? I do care about you, that's the problem. I love you, and you're treating me like I'm nothing. You not nothing. You good man, Martin. Kind man. But love is complicated. You think love mean I belong to you only, but I never agreed to that. I never signed contract. People were starting to stare. A foreign man arguing with a local woman outside a gold shop. It was attracting exactly the kind of attention I'd been trying to avoid since moving to Bangkok. But I couldn't stop. You're right, I said. You never signed a contract. You just took my money, my gifts, my trust, and my heart while fucking someone else. My mistake for thinking that meant something. Her face hardened. You talk to me like this, now I know you not good man, I thought. You just like other Farang. Think you can buy Thai girl, own Thai girl, control Thai girl with money. I never tried to control you. You give expensive gift. Then think you own my body, my time, my feelings. This is control, Martin. This is why I need Niran. He loved me without trying to control me. She turned to walk into the shop. I grabbed her arm gently, but she jerked away like I'd burned her. Don't touch me. We finish now. Don't call me. Don't come to my work. Don't bother me anymore. What about the money you took from my safe? She stopped, her hand on the shop door. What money? The 40,000 baht. You blamed Bo, but it was you, wasn't it? She turned back to me, and for the first time in the conversation, she looked genuinely angry. You still thinking about money? Still counting every baht like I'm some thief? This is why we never work, Martin. You cannot love someone and count cost at same time. I'm not counting the cost of love. I'm counting the cost of being lied to. I never lie to you about money. Bo take money, I get back what I can. But maybe I take some for myself sometimes. When I need for family, for emergencies. You have so much, you never miss small amounts. There it was, the confession buried in justification. She had been taking money from my safe, probably for months, considering it her right because I had more than I needed. Small amounts, few thousand baht here, there. Not enough for you to notice. But my family poor, Martin. My mother sick, need medicine. My brother need money for school. I never take large amounts. Never be greedy. I thought about all the times I'd found my cash slightly short, all the times I'd assumed I'd miscounted or forgotten a purchase. How much had she taken over the months? How much of my trust had been converted into baht for her real life, the life I wasn't part of? You could have asked me for help. I would have given you anything for your family. You would give, yes. But then you would count cost. You would keep track. You would make me explain every baht, every need. This way, I handle my problems myself. She walked into the shop without looking back. Through the window, I watched her chat casually with her coworker, already moving on to the rest of her day. Just another interaction with a difficult customer, handled and dismissed. I stood there for another 10 minutes, hoping she'd come back out, hoping she'd realize what she'd just thrown away. But the shop door stayed closed, and eventually I had to accept that I was just a middle-aged man standing alone on a Bangkok street, staring at a jewelry store like it held the answers to questions I was too proud to ask. That afternoon I got a text from Bo. Martin, sorry about difficult situation. Ananya has new boyfriend now. Better for everyone if you no contact family anymore. Hope you understand. Thank you for being kind to cousin. Even in the breakup, I was being managed, handled by people who saw me as a problem to be solved rather than a person who deserved basic consideration. I went home and checked my bank account. Between the cash withdrawals I hadn't noticed, the expensive gifts, the dinners and trips and shopping sprees, I'd spent almost $30,000 in 6 months. Not enough to bankrupt me, but enough to make me feel stupid. Enough to make me realize I'd been paying for a relationship that existed only in my imagination. That night I tried to calculate the real cost of loving Ananya. Not just the money was replaceable, but the trust, the hope, the belief that I could start over at 64 and find something real. The humiliation of being seen as nothing more than a generous ATM with emotional needs. The knowledge that while I'd been planning our future, she'd been planning her exit strategy. The ring was gone. The money was gone. But worst of all, my faith in my own judgment was gone. How had I been so wrong about everything? How had I mistaken performance for affection, transaction for love? I poured a whiskey and sat on my balcony, looking out at the Bangkok skyline. Somewhere out there, Ananya was probably with Niran, maybe wearing my ring, maybe laughing about the crazy old American who thought he could buy love with diamonds and iPhones. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had tried to buy love. But if that was true, then what she'd sold me wasn't love either. It was just a very expensive lesson in loneliness. 3 weeks passed without a word from her. I told myself this was what I wanted, clean break, no drama, the mature way to handle a relationship that had run its course. But my phone felt heavy in my pocket, waiting for a text that never came. My apartment felt too quiet without her voice, too empty without her things scattered around. I tried to establish routines that didn't include her. Coffee at a different cafe, one where we'd never sat together holding hands while she planned Instagram content. Grocery shopping on different days so I wouldn't accidentally run into her near the market where she sometimes bought vegetables for her mother. Long walks through parts of Bangkok where we'd never been together. But Bangkok is smaller than you think when you're trying to avoid someone. Or maybe I was unconsciously seeking the places where I might see her, hoping for one more chance to understand what had happened to us. The loneliness was physical. I'd forgotten how that felt, the way it settles in your chest like a weight, makes food taste like cardboard, turns sleep into restless hours of replaying conversations and wondering what you could have said differently. I'd been alone for 3 years after Ellen died, but this was different. Ellen's absence was a tragedy. Ananya's absence was a choice. I started noticing couples everywhere. Bangkok was full of them. Young Thai women with older Western men, walking hand in hand through shopping centers, sharing meals at restaurants, posing for photos at tourist sites. Were any of them real? Were any of these men seeing what I'd failed to see? Or were they all just paying premium prices for the illusion of being desired? "You're better off without her," Greg said over beers at a rooftop bar in Sathorn. "I know it doesn't feel like it now, but she was using you, Martin." Classic Bangkok gold digger pattern. "Maybe," I said, but the word felt hollow. If she was just using me, why had some moments felt so genuine? The quiet conversations about her childhood, the way she'd curl up next to me while watching movies, the morning we'd spent in bed talking about the differences between American and Thai culture. Had all of that been performance? "Look, I've been here 15 years, Greg continued. "I've seen guys like you go through this exact same thing. Smart men, successful men, men who should know better. But they come to Bangkok looking for something: youth, adventure, a fresh start, and there are women here who specialize in providing exactly that fantasy." She never asked for money directly, never pressured me for gifts. That's what made her good at it. The best ones never ask directly. They just create situations where you want to give, where giving makes you feel generous and loved. It's more sophisticated than the bar girls who hit you up for money on the second date. I knew he was probably right, but it still didn't explain the contradictions. The genuine tears when I proposed. The way she'd introduced me to her friends as her boyfriend, not some foreign client. The family dinners where I'd sat with her relatives, struggling through conversations in broken Thai while they laughed and included me like family. Had her entire extended family been in on the performance? 2 months after our confrontation outside the gold shop, I made a mistake. I checked her Instagram. She'd changed her privacy settings. I couldn't see her posts anymore, but her profile picture had been updated. It was a photo of her and Niran at what looked like a beach resort, both of them tanned and smiling. She was wearing a bikini and a gold necklace I'd never seen before. He was wearing expensive sunglasses and a watch that probably cost more than my car. But the thing that made my chest tighten wasn't their obvious happiness. It was what wasn't in the photo. My ring was gone from her finger. I stared at that image for 20 minutes, zooming in to make sure I wasn't missing it. But no, her left hand was clearly visible, and it was bare except for a simple gold band that looked nothing like the diamond I'd chosen. What had she done with my ring? Sold it? Given it to another man? Thrown it away like it meant nothing? The not knowing was almost worse than the betrayal itself. I tried to distract myself with work, freelance architecture projects I could do from my laptop, small residential designs for expat friends who wanted to renovate their condos. But concentration was impossible. I'd find myself staring at blueprints and thinking about Ananya's laugh. I'd be calculating load-bearing walls and remember the weight of her head on my chest while we watched movies. The worst part was the self-doubt. Had I been a good boyfriend? Had I been too controlling, too possessive, too foreign in my expectations? She'd said I tried to own her, but I'd thought I was just being committed. She'd said I counted costs, but I'd thought I was being generous. Were these the same actions viewed through different cultural lenses? Or was I really as pathetic as she'd made me feel? I started avoiding other expats. Their knowing looks, their careful questions about how I was doing, their obvious relief that they weren't the ones who'd fallen for the beautiful girl with the perfect smile. Bangkok's expat community was small enough that everyone knew everyone else's business, and my business had apparently become a cautionary tale. Martin's doing better. I heard Greg tell someone at a party I'd reluctantly attended, learning the hard way that these relationships rarely work out the way we hope. These relationships. Like love was a category of consumer purchase, subject to buyer beware warnings and return policies. But maybe that's exactly what it had been. 3 months after she'd walked into that gold shop and out of my life, I saw her one more time. Not intentionally. I was buying groceries at Central Embassy, lost in thought about dinner plans, when I heard familiar laughter from the electronics section. She was there with Niran, looking at laptops. He was pointing at different models while she nodded and asked questions in Thai. She looked happy, relaxed, like someone shopping with her boyfriend for something they actually needed together. I watched them from behind a display of phone accessories, feeling like a stalker but unable to look away. This was what she looked like when she wasn't performing for me. Natural, unguarded, real. They bought a MacBook Pro, the most expensive model in the store. She paid with cash. As they walked past my hiding spot toward the exit, I caught a glimpse of her left hand. Still no ring, but there was a tan line where mine used to sit. The ghost of my love, marked on her skin like a scar that would eventually fade completely. She never saw me. Why would she look for me? I was part of her past now, filed away with other temporary complications she'd successfully resolved. I went home and opened a bottle of wine, then sat on my balcony watching the sunset paint Bangkok's skyline in shades of gold and red. The city spread out below me like a circuit board, millions of lights representing millions of lives, millions of stories of connection and loss and hope and disappointment. Somewhere out there, Ananya was probably setting up her new laptop, maybe editing photos from her beach trip with Niran, planning content that would attract more followers, and maybe more generous men looking for something real in a place where real was the most expensive commodity of all. I raised my glass to the skyline. To expensive lessons, I said aloud because there was no one else to say it to. The city didn't answer back. It never does. I left Bangkok on a Tuesday morning in October. No dramatic exit, no final confrontation, no attempts to track down Ananya for closure I knew I'd never get. Just a simple packing job that revealed how little I'd actually accumulated during my year in the city. Clothes, books, a laptop, some photos of temples and markets and sunsets over the river. Nothing that proved I'd been loved there. Nothing that proved I'd mattered to anyone but myself. The flight to Chiang Mai took 90 minutes. I'd chosen it because it was different enough from Bangkok to feel like a fresh start, but still familiar enough to not require learning an entirely new country. Mountain air instead of river humidity. Traditional culture instead of cosmopolitan chaos. A place where maybe I could figure out who I was when I wasn't trying to be someone else's idea of a good boyfriend. My new apartment was smaller, cheaper, on a quiet street near the old city walls. No views of glittering skylines or bustling streets. Just a simple space with clean lines and enough room for one person to live without pretense. The loneliness followed me north, but it felt different in Chiang Mai. Less acute, more like an old injury that ached when it rained. I could walk through night markets without seeing Ananya's ghost in every young woman's smile. I could eat dinner alone without remembering how she used to steal food from my plate while we talked about her dreams. I tried dating, briefly. Met a German woman named Petra at a cooking class, a Canadian named Sarah at a yoga retreat. Nice women, age-appropriate women, women who didn't make me feel like I was auditioning for the role of generous foreigner in their life stories. But I couldn't connect. The conversations felt flat, the physical intimacy forced. I was comparing everyone to a woman who had probably never been real in the first place. After 3 months in Chiang Mai, I stopped trying to date entirely. It wasn't depression, exactly. I was sleeping well, eating properly, taking care of myself. But I'd lost the ability to believe in romantic love as something that could happen to me. Trust was like a muscle that had been severely injured. It would heal, but it might never be as strong as it once was. I focused on other things. Architecture projects for locals who needed help with renovations. Volunteer work teaching English to children who looked at me with genuine curiosity instead of calculated interest. Long hikes in the mountains surrounding the city, where the air was clear and the silence was comfortable instead of oppressive. 6 months after leaving Bangkok, I was walking through the Saturday night market when I saw something that made me stop walking entirely. A young couple was browsing jewelry at one of the silver stalls. The woman was maybe 25, clearly Thai, with the kind of careful styling that suggested Instagram aspirations. The man was probably 50, Western, holding her hand while she examined different necklaces. She picked up a simple silver chain with a small pendant. "It's beautiful," she said in accented English, "but too expensive. Maybe someday." I watched him study her face, saw the exact moment he decided to be her hero. "How much?" he asked the vendor. 2,000 baht, the woman said. "About $50. "We'll take it," he said, pulling out his wallet with the eager satisfaction of a man who just solved his girlfriend's problem. She squealed with delight, kissed his cheek, immediately put on the necklace and asked him to take a photo of her wearing it. He obliged, beaming with pride at making her happy. I stood there watching this scene play out, the same dance I'd performed with Ananya countless times, and felt nothing but sadness. Not anger, not judgment, not superiority, just sadness for both of them. For the woman who had learned that performing gratitude was more profitable than earning her own jewelry. For the man who had learned that purchasing happiness was easier than building it. Maybe their love was real. Maybe she genuinely cared about him beyond his ability to buy her things. Maybe he saw her as more than a beautiful accessory to his expatriate fantasy. Maybe they would build something lasting and genuine. But probably not. And the probably not was what made me walk away without buying anything at all. That night, I sat at my small kitchen table and started writing. Not this story, not yet. Just random thoughts about love and money, about the difference between being chosen and being useful, about the way loneliness can make smart people do stupid things. I wrote about Ellen, about the last conversation we'd had before the morphine made talking impossible. "Don't be alone forever," she'd whispered. "But don't be desperate either. There's a difference between being open to love and being hungry for it." I'd been hungry, ravenous, and hunger makes you easy to exploit. I wrote about Bangkok, about the intoxicating feeling of being desired by someone beautiful and young, about the slow realization that desire and love were completely different currencies. I wrote about Ananya, trying to be fair to her memory even as I acknowledged the damage she'd done. She'd never promised me forever. She'd never claimed to be exclusive. She'd accepted my gifts and my attention, and given me exactly what she'd contracted to provide: companionship, affection, the illusion of being special. The problem wasn't that she'd been dishonest about the terms. The problem was that I'd refused to read them. I wrote until 3 a.m, filling pages with insights that would have saved me months of heartache if I'd possessed them a year earlier. But maybe wisdom only comes from making mistakes. Maybe you have to pay full price for lessons about love, just like everything else worth learning. I never sent the pages to anyone, never showed them to friends or posted them online or tried to turn my humiliation into content. They were just for me a way to process what had happened, to understand my role in my own disappointment, to forgive both Ananya and myself for being human in all the messy, disappointing ways humans are. The writing helped, not immediately but gradually, like physical therapy for emotional injuries. Each page I wrote was one step further away from the man who'd stood in a Bangkok jewelry shop asking a clerk what was appropriate to buy for a friend, not knowing he was actually auditioning for the role of generous stranger in a beautiful woman's survival strategy. I was becoming someone else. Someone who understood the difference between loneliness and solitude, between generosity and desperation, between love and transaction. Someone who might, eventually, be ready to love again. But only when love found him, not when he went hunting for it with his credit card and his wounded heart and his 64-year-old need to feel young again. For now, solitude was enough. The mountains were beautiful, the air was clean, and I was learning to be good company for myself. It was a quieter life than I'd imagined when I first moved to Thailand, but it was also more honest, and after everything that had happened, honesty felt like the most valuable thing I owned. It's been 2 years since I left Bangkok. 2 years since I stood outside that gold shop listening to Ananya explain why my love had been excessive, why my gifts had been unsolicited, why my pain was not her fault. I'm writing this story from a small cafe in Chiang Mai, the same cafe where I've come every morning for the past 18 months to drink coffee and watch the world wake up around me. I never went back to Bangkok, never tried to contact Ananya or her family. Never checked her Instagram again to see if she'd married Niran or found someone else to finance her influencer dreams. That part of my life is sealed off like a room in a house I no longer live in. I know it exists, but I don't need to visit it anymore. The story could have ended differently. I could have become bitter, could have turned into one of those expat bar philosophers who spend their evenings warning younger men about Thai women and the dangers of romantic optimism. I could have retreated entirely from human connection, built walls high enough to protect me from ever being vulnerable again. I could have gone back to Minnesota, admitted defeat, spent my remaining years as a cautionary tale about the foolishness of senior citizen romance. Instead, I chose something harder. I chose to learn from what happened without letting it define what happens next. The lessons came slowly, often painfully. I had to acknowledge my role in the disaster, how my loneliness had made me desperate, how my privilege had made me naive, how my age had made me grateful for attention I should have questioned. I'd been so hungry for love that I'd mistaken performance for genuine affection, transaction for intimacy. But I also had to acknowledge that Ananya wasn't a villain in this story, any more than I was a victim. She was a young woman trying to survive in a world where her beauty and charm were valuable commodities, where foreign men arrived daily, looking for exactly what she had to offer. She'd been honest within the parameters of her world, even if those parameters were invisible to someone from mine. We'd both been playing by different rules, speaking different languages, wanting different things. The tragedy wasn't that one of us had been evil. The tragedy was that both of us had been human. I started dating again about a year ago. Not aggressively, not desperately, just openly. I met Linda at a pottery class, a 60-year-old Australian who'd moved to Chiang Mai after her divorce. She has gray hair and laugh lines and stories about her grandchildren. She pays for her own coffee, drives her own scooter, and has never once asked me to buy her anything or take a photo of us for social media. We're taking things slowly. We talk about books and travel and the strange experience of rebuilding your life in a foreign country when you're old enough to know better but young enough to try anyway. She knows about Ananya, not all the details, but enough to understand why I'm cautious about moving too fast or giving too much too soon. Love shouldn't be expensive, she said one evening as we walked through the Sunday night market. If it costs too much, it's probably not love. It was the simplest, truest thing anyone had ever said to me about relationships. We haven't talked about marriage or forever or any of the grand romantic gestures I'd been so eager to make with Ananya. We're just enjoying each other's company, building trust slowly, letting whatever this is develop at its own pace without forcing it into shapes that might not fit. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd met Linda first, if I'd never walked into that gold shop in Bangkok, if I'd never felt the intoxicating rush of being desired by someone young and beautiful and seemingly devoted. Would I appreciate what I have with Linda as much if I hadn't paid such a high price to learn what real companionship looks like? Probably not. Some lessons can only be learned through making expensive mistakes. I think about Ananya sometimes, but not with anger anymore. I hope she's happy. I hope she found whatever she was looking for, whether it was financial security or genuine love, or just the freedom to make her own choices without having to perform gratitude for foreign men who confuse generosity with affection. I hope she kept some small, positive memory of our time together, not the dramatic ending, not the confrontation outside her workplace, but maybe one of those quiet mornings when we'd sit on my balcony drinking coffee and planning adventures we'd never actually take. Maybe the moment I proposed, before the complications set in, when for just a few seconds we were both exactly who we pretended to be. The ring, the money, the dignity, I thought I'd lost. None of that matters anymore. What matters is that I survived the experience with my capacity for hope intact. Bruised maybe, more careful, certainly, but not dead. Bangkok was the best and worst thing that ever happened to me. It broke me down completely, stripped away every illusion I'd had about love and desire and my own irresistible charm. But it also taught me the difference between being needed and being wanted, between being generous and being desperate, between loving someone and loving the idea of someone loving you back. I left my dignity behind in that city, scattered across gold shops and rooftop bars and Instagram posts I'll never see. But I found something more valuable in return. The ability to be alone without being lonely, to be generous without being foolish, to be open to love without being hungry for it. If you're reading this story and seeing yourself in it, if you're the older man who's fallen for the younger woman, if you're wondering whether her affection is real or performed, if you're trying to calculate the cost of love in bought and broken promises, I can't tell you what to do. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone's heart speaks a different language, but I can tell you this. Real love doesn't require constant proof of your worthiness. Real love doesn't ask you to pay for the privilege of receiving it. Real love doesn't make you feel like you're auditioning for a role in someone else's life story. Real love is what I have with Linda now, quiet, steady, unglamorous, and absolutely free of charge. It took me 66 years to learn the difference. It cost me $30,000 in 1 year of my life to understand what love actually looks like when it's not dressed up in Instagram filters and diamond rings and the desperate need to feel young again. It was an expensive education. But like all the best educations, it changed my life in ways I never expected and couldn't have learned any other way. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter or broken or afraid of trusting again. I'm just grateful. Grateful that I survived the experience. Grateful that I learned from it. Grateful that at 66, I still have time to get love right. The coffee in this cafe is terrible, but the sunrise through the mountains is beautiful, and Linda will be here soon to share it with me. We'll plan our day, maybe the temple market, maybe a hike to the waterfall, maybe just staying home and reading books on the balcony. Whatever we do, it'll be real. It'll be chosen freely by both of us. And it won't cost a thing except the time we're happy to spend together. That's what love looks like when you finally stop paying for it. That's what peace looks like when you finally stop running from yourself. I gave her everything, my trust, my heart, and a ring. She gave me a lie, a show, and the most valuable lesson of my life. In the end, I think I got the better deal.